Blog Talk Radio.
Do you ever stop to wonder if people really knew the truth about what was going on in the world, if they would be any different? Because quite frankly, normal abandoned me a long time ago. My name is Dakota Frandsen. I am the specialist of the strange and fucked up. You'll never see the world the same way once you stick with me. Nothing is off limits. And you'll never know what world I'll be coming from for each episode. Listen in and wait for your world to be changed forever.
Hey, everybody, this is Dakota Frandsen welcoming you to my radio show, Specialist of the Strange. My name, you already know that, but guess what? Today, on this very special episode, I am talking about real supernatural tales. I took to social media and I requested that you, the viewers, you fabulous people, you fabulous individuals, come together and share your stories. Or if you have some questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy. I love to share and discuss new ideas on this sort of thing. You guys did not disappoint because it is October, it is almost Halloween, and something about the second week of fucking October brings out some of the craziest motherfucking shit out there. And I also thought because the CW show Supernatural returned for its 14th season, don't give any spoilers, yesterday, the timing couldn't be perfect. The question I get a lot, especially from the Supernatural fandom, is that is any of it real? Oh, guess what? Yeah, it is. This shit is real. It happens a lot more than you would expect. And quite honestly, it's so much fucking weirder. I have some of the questions ready to go, submitted earlier in the week. And I also have a couple stories here that really caught my interest. Some of you did not get the fucking memo. Oh, I got stories on aliens. I got stories on ghosts. I'm sorry. I'm a one-man operation here. If you want to share, share. There's going to be no judgment here. Some of you went ahead and shared your stories. Some of you tried to say that you had so many, and you danced around the subject so much that I can't take your ass seriously. I said it. Oh, sorry. This thing that's fucking back in my throat. All right. So, shall I shut the fuck up and go to the first question? Let's do that. All right, first question I got was from a young lady. And I believe she was about 9, 10 years old. So, and she asked, "Hey, Dakota, how are ghosts made?" Well, that's a hard question to answer. There is this concept called quantum mechanics. And I know you're a fan, young lady, if you're listening in, I know you're a fan of Ant-Man. And this is kind of the stuff that this freaky, colorful stuff that they show in Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp. I am not an endorser of Marvel. I'm just using pop culture, my man. All right. Now, some of the ideas out there are ghosts are made when our spirit leaves the body, but the body is too damaged by how that person unfortunately passed away to go back. Now, can you bring people back from the dead? You can, but there's a lot of factors that go into it. Stuff that you really got to be careful. And I know that scientists are actually trying to experiment with that idea to see if we can use something called stem cells to try to help bring people back from the dead. It's an interesting concept. It's kind of weird. But to answer your question, truth is, nobody really knows how this stuff is possible. It is very weird, and it's kind of hard to get some of the people who have the right tools to possibly look into this to agree to try to research it. But one of the main theories is that the ghost, someone's spirit, is able to go around because of weird things that happen with the quantum world. And if I am confusing you, sweetie, I am sorry, but don't feel bad. Even people many more times smarter than me had no clue how this stuff works. Like somehow the spirit is able to move around. How? We don't know. Maybe they somehow are able to trick the light into acting like some sort of body. There's a lot that needs to be done. There are a few ideas that I'm sure will come to light here in the future. To answer your question quickly, nobody is sure, but the answer is out there, and chances are it's really spooky. I might be able to come back to this on a later question, so please stick around, okay? All right, let's see what we have here. I have the questions all set out on a Google Docs, so I can just go through and read them. Another person asked, what happens to make someone believe in ghosts and want to investigate these things? Well, to answer your question, most of the time, people who take this field seriously had experienced something that they were not able to get an answer to. They know they weren't crazy. Well, part of them thinks they're going crazy, but they know they weren't making stuff up. And they just want to know what happened. So they might turn to ghost hunting on the chance that things they maybe read in one of the many, many books or see on the TV shows out there matches up with what they say. I myself got interested after an incident took place at the old Idaho State Penitentiary. I was 10, 11 years old at the time. It was part of a school field trip. We were on a tour. Our tour guide took us through death row. The noose was hanging. And while our group was about to leave, I noticed a man appear on the noose. Naturally, my thought was, oh shit, somebody is trying to hurt themselves. So I was screaming, yo, whoa, hey, somebody's in there, hurry, help him. By the time I look back, the man disappeared. Now, what could have happened? I don't know. Unfortunately, because I was very much one of those kids who liked to prank my classmates, nobody believed me. Until about a few years later, when Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures came by for the first season of their show, captured a shadow object who was believed to be a man by the name of Raymond Snowden, who is considered Idaho's Jack the Ripper, and old photos of him strongly resembled the man I saw. So that's my story. After this, when I was about 14, I started gathering up ghost hunting equipment that I tried to get from using babysitting money, Christmas gifts, and overly generous family offers in order to put my own group together. For most people, that's the same. Now, there's some that think that this is going to be their ticket into fame and fortune and all that. Doesn't exactly go out like that. Now, I myself have been given offers and occasionally am in the talks to do such shows, but if you go into this field expecting that to happen, you're not going to go anywhere. I'll be able to go to that later on. Here's a really good question that I get asked a lot, and I see pop up on social media quite often in some form or another. And this person asks, why does it seem like most ghosts come from the 1800s? If they were real, and a follow-up question they ask is, if they were real, why aren't there ghosts from caveman days? Why aren't there stuff like that? Now, as for why so many shows and areas tried to utilize that time period, I believe it is more for historical significance, and it's harder to go back that far and prove a potential haunting wrong than it is for a person that died maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Sometimes, and there is, I know some ideas, I was like, what, is there like a 200-year waiting period? No. Sometimes hauntings can happen almost instant after a person passes away. Now, there might be a confusion, there might be a transition period, there might be some time where they need to take in order to figure out their new situation, but they're not all from the 1800s. I always believe that was more for historical significance, and it's harder to prove somebody wrong. If it's ghosts from way back when documentation wasn't as thorough as it is nowadays, or something from back then could have easily gotten destroyed over time. Follow-up question I've got is, if they were real, why aren't there caveman ghosts? This is a trickier question. It is believed that there's actually a molecule that appears in many plants, many animals, some species of bird, I believe, mostly mammals from what I've read up on. It's called DMT. I actually have an article written about it. It is listed as a hallucinogen. And the reason why not a lot of research has gone in behind why this appears in our body is because it is also considered illegal. Many Native American tribes would actually extract natural DMT and use it to go on spiritual quests, and is also believed by some to have a link, might actually be a sort of gateway into life after death, or what causes us to believe in life after death. People who have taken these drugs in significant, I mean heavy doses, usually when they come out of it, they claim they encounter elves, fairies, even angels. Now, I know I have friends in law enforcement who watch this show and know I would strongly discourage me to do this, but I am curious to maybe expose myself to the drug in order to see the effects for myself. I am genuinely curious. I don't like to mess with drugs. If I can get away with it, I don't want to live my life on a pill. But this is interesting. And because there's a lot of ethical questions and it's listed as an illegal substance, it makes it very difficult to do official research. Now, I know I do have a lot more questions available, and I know I'm kind of rambling on here, so we might do multiple parts to this show just to try to cover everything. But I do have a story that actually comes from a law enforcement personnel. This comes from a cop. And said, hey, I have a story to share. I'm a police officer and had a weird story come out of a car accident a few years ago. The snow was really bad, and I had to respond to a car versus snowplow in a small town. Basically, the weather conditions were really bad. The car had hit a patch of ice and slid into the plow. It was a rather nasty scene, but essentially it was found to be nobody's fault. A couple weeks after the crash, the driver of the plow tracked me down and wanted to ask if I had seen a certain guy at the scene. I asked him to describe the guy he was wondering about, and he gave the description. I altered this out of respect to the family, but it was a Latino male. He said it was maybe in his late 30s, wearing a gray flannel shirt and jeans. The look on my face must have given it away. Apparently, while at the scene, the snowplow driver got out of his rig in order to check on the guys that hit him, and saw this guy that he described crawl out of the car and told him to help his friend. He went to look inside the car. He saw that his friend wasn't doing so good. Then he looked back to ask the guy if he sure it was all right, but the guy he described disappeared. He was gone. Well, he goes on to explain that there were actually two men in the car. One was immediately taken into the hospital, but died later because of his injuries. The other guy we didn't realize was inside until we started to take the car apart. He was a Latino male in his late 30s, wearing what remained of a gray flannel shirt and jeans. This story astounded me, and I know several law enforcement members, as well as fire and paramedics, medical staff, who often try to listen into stuff like Coast to Coast AM, Ghost Hunters, maybe Destination Truth reruns, Expedition Unknown on occasion, shows like that. And they are open-minded to it, and a lot of the times they have actually seen strange things happen. Being that this is a cop that shared this story, that does describe his credibility. He doesn't necessarily gain anything from it. And I have heard several similar stories where they were able to see somehow someone had died was part of a group situation. Maybe it was a family member. Maybe it was friends that got stuck in a bad situation, but somehow a person of the group dies and somehow is able to manages to find a way to flag down help to save their loved one so they don't pass away as well. Obviously, this is a situation, and my condolences go out to the family, but this was a situation where he wasn't successful. I personally believe his story, when he told me this story, I managed to meet with him in person. His expressions were just too genuine in order to be falsified in any way, shape, or form. So, I do believe the story. This is actually pretty good. All right, I've seen now that we only have 8 more minutes, so I'm only going to try to manage to maybe 2 more questions. Then, if I can get away with it, I will pop back on here with a part 2 episode and go into more stories. I'll also be doing a video blog to cover these and a few more things. I'm going to try to shoot it tomorrow, but don't take my word for it because family issues are starting to crop up. Nobody's hurt, just it's weird. Anyway, this next question goes, hi Dakota, hey, what's going on? I read a story on Coast to Coast about 3 young ladies who went on a hike and said they might have encountered an angel. What are your thoughts on this? If I'm not mistaken, I actually saw this article myself. Do I believe these young ladies? No. The reason why I say this is because allegedly there was a letter left behind by a man they had seen in a white robe and long brown hair, essentially resembling the common depiction of Christ. And so they found a letter in an envelope from this man saying this mountain was very special. It was where he came to pray to the Lord. And there were several $100s in that envelope. And this was really an angel. And none of these ladies indicated that they had been having financial issues. If there was an angel, normally they would not intervene in getting a person's financial assistance in any way, shape, or form unless that money was going to be put towards charitable causes or potentially saving someone, like they needed money for medical bills. Do I believe the story? No. It's an interesting thought, but I don't see it. It's one I'm skeptical on. Next question. Did you really spot baby Nessies at Loch Ness? I don't know what the fuck I saw. For those of you who may not know, I was back in March. I was on vacation with some friends of mine, and the reason why I went on this trip in the first place, when I found out that we were going to be visiting the Scottish Highlands, we were going to be visiting Loch Ness. It was always my dream to check out Loch Ness, to see Nessie with my own eyes. When I was there, not only did I potentially see Nessie, but I saw what looked like babies, what looked like juvenile specimens. Being that Nessie sightings date back to the 6th century, it makes sense that there's more than one. And while I was looking up this article so I can send the link to someone I'm in the talks to for a project, I noticed that another article from the same news source that wrote about it, me in the first place, mentioned that showed that a photo was taken of what looked like a dinosaur, a long-necked brontosaurus. It looked like a baby from the size of it. But the neck shape was similar to how Nessie sightings are spotted. And some of the sightings of Nessie indicate she might be able to come out of the water. So, this is interesting. I'm going to keep an eye on this because it indicates that maybe. And there are stories of dinosaur-like creatures still walking the earth, and I don't want to completely throw it out, because you never know. There might be animals out there who are genetically similar to the common depictions of dinosaurs that are out there. You never really know. So did I really spot them? I'm not sure. I know I spotted something. They were big. and it looked a lot like people are claiming is a Loch Ness monster. I'm going to go into one more episode real quick before I cut off and we start. I mean, not one more episode. One more question real quick before I cut off and I go into a quickly start up part 2 of this broadcast. There are so many good questions that I got that I need to do multiple parts on this. So here's one more question real quick. Would you ever consider doing a TV show about the paranormal? Yes, if I was given the opportunity. I know I said I was kind of kiboshing people who wanted to do it, but personally, I've always been interested in storytelling. I've always had the personal belief that if you can go through life and have stories to tell at the end of the day, you lived a good life. And if I was given an offer to do a TV show, I would be more than happy to accept. Because it will be not only an opportunity for myself to get access to some of the tools that I've always wanted to play with, but be able to tell this story further on. Now, if you've been listening in, don't go away. I'm going to be shooting part 2. We're going to be launching part 2 very soon, all right? Just give me a couple minutes to put everything together. Oh, wait. Looks like we have 2 more minutes. So I'm going to go. We'll see if we can go. No. Let's not do that. Let's cut it off here. Stick around. We're going to be doing another episode here. We're going to be doing part 2 very soon. Just give me a couple minutes to launch, okay? I'll see you in a couple minutes. Stick around. Don't you dare go anywhere. And if you're listening to the recordings of this episode, be sure to check back on whatever services. Hopefully, everything syncs through to where all the content I present is readily available. So, stick around. And if you're listening to the recordings, you can go ahead and jump to part 2. I will try to get everything set up to where it automatically flows, but sometimes it doesn't always work out. So, stick around if you're listening in, or if you're not, if you're watching the recordings, be sure to check out part 2 of this episode. We got a lot more good questions to go through, and we have a few more good stories to tell. I'll see you later, all right? Promise, stick around, okay? See you later, all right? Let's do it, all right?